you might want to be careful. I'm not being serious. And the reason why I say this is because it feels to me like, and I've said this before, the hammer's going to start coming down on people, and it's probably going to also include people in the media. So you might want to heed the warning of Damian Woody here, and that warning is you might want to be careful when it comes to the topic of collusion and see that this situation here is exactly what it is that the experts are in fact saying. Massive amounts of red flags, and no, they weren't going to spend a first-round pick on him.
It wasn't me that passed on him. I would have taken the guy given what I know about him.
All right, let's get everyone else in here.
Listen, I think, first of all, Stephen A., there's a word you use collusion. I think we got to be very careful with the word collusion because I don't think, to me, the talent plays a big role in this whole situation.
Legendary. Legendary right here. You know what I mean? Freshman of the year, player of the year, you know, like 29 touchdowns, like 4 or 5 interceptions, like Tom Brady like numbers, like legendary, you know? Like, yeah. You know what I mean?
And I don't blame him. I mean, when you listen to the way that he was talking about himself, some of the actions that you have seen on the field in terms of his interaction with other players, shoving a referee in the back, building his own draft room, legendary, having all this crap hanging off. I mean, like, this is basically a wake-up call to, I think, a lot of these athletes. And by the way, he wasn't the only one who fell. The other one who fell was Quinn Ewers from Texas.
Yeah.
Another big nil athlete, played at a big school, played in, playoff games, and was thought to be like the second coming.
I honestly believe that you guys should just stop it. And I seriously mean stop it. Now, you guys heard a small bit of Stephen A. Smith right there, and you also heard Boomer Esiason. And, of course, this right here is in response to this report that came out, which, by the way, was reported on and even voiced on The Fan by Boomer Esiason, who is not an NFL reporter. He's just a contributor, and he has his own YouTube channel, basically New York-based sports, where they talk about the Giants, the Jets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Boomer and Gio. I do listen to these guys from time to time because they are, in fact, entertaining, and Boomer is, in my opinion, a relatively smart guy. Not to mention also the fact that he's a guy who played in the league at one point in time, so I do value his opinion. However, the thing is this right here. What Boomer was saying right there at the beginning is 100% true. There were other people who fell in the draft. Now, the report is that NFL owners started taking Shedeur Sanders off the draft board. They basically told him, look, they told the general manager, told the scouts, look, man, just get him off the draft board. And they probably did that not just because of the interviews, but because they, for the most part, were handling exactly what it is that they needed to take care of by position in the NFL draft. I mean, that's why you draft players. You draft them to fill holes. Normally, you take best available by talent. And, of course, if you have a hole at the quarterback position, then therefore, you ultimately end up taking a quarterback if you need one. A lot of the teams this draft did not need a quarterback, or B, it was possible that they had chosen to go the veteran route or were going in the case of the veteran route, kind of like what the Steelers are doing right now. And they thought that this quarterback class was kind of weak. So they figured that, this was a target-rich environment for backups. Now, guys, I did do a video on this yesterday about Shedeur Sanders, the fall, and how it was that it felt more like a humiliation ritual, and I explained why it was that Shedeur Sanders was not taken in the first round and why it was that he fell. And I could already hear somebody who's from New York or maybe a Giants fan coming in here and chiming in and saying, look, you know what, and by the way, I'm not saying this to be negative towards Giants fans at all, but I could already hear them saying, well, didn't you say in the last video, if you did watch it, which, of course, YouTube just stymied for whatever reason, because they've been stymieing my content like crazy the past month. Didn't you say that there was this incident involving Brian Dable where Brian Dable essentially called Shedeur Sanders out for not being ready for the interview? Yes, that right there is true. It's the biggest reason why it is that the Giants ultimately went along and chose Jackson Dart instead. Now, real quick, just to kind of like just switch gears for a very, very quick second. Make sure you guys have got the notifications bell on if you guys are, in fact, subscribed to the channel. Also, if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the content. Even though we're going through the content shift next week, please still consider subscribing. You may like the content that's going to be coming out here in the near future. It's basically going to be the same type commentary, but it's going to be presented a little bit differently. We're going to be going in the direction of film and movies and games, stories, all that type of stuff there. But make sure you guys please stick around for that there too. I would love to have you guys come along. Also, something else too, please make sure the notifications bells are on as well. And if you guys can, please hit that like button so that way this video will get out to a much, much larger audience. And let's go ahead and get to this. So let's go ahead and start with Stephen A. Smith. But of course, if you listen to people like Stephen A. Smith, they will come out here and tell you that this right here is quote unquote collusion. This right here is a small bit from his segment a couple nights ago. Actually, it was last night, I think. I'm going to play a small bit for you guys, come back on the other end, explain to you guys why it is that he is not entirely accurate on this, but I will also link the full bit in the description box, so here goes.
Okay, clearly it's not about talent anymore. It's about something else. And I'm going to tell you, I spent a large amount of the last 24 hours thinking about nothing more than I was thinking about collusion. Because how in the hell does 32 teams in the National Football League pass on a quarterback that was universally recognized one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country entering this draft, and 32 teams passed on them? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 different times they passed on them. How the hell does that happen?
So in the segment, basically what it is that this right here was basically, how do I say, a mark against Shedeur Sanders. That the league had spoken. And in some cases, some people are now arguing that it was just outright collusion. Now, I want to say this really quick. The reason why I'm making this video is not so much to tell you guys that it's not about collusion or that the NFL colluded against Shedeur Sanders or Shedeur Sanders. I did a video on that yesterday, and I think it speaks for itself. I think all the experts out there, the Tom Pelisseros of the world, those who were actually reporting on the draft and not associated with ESPN, because it seems like the NFL Network did a better job on this case because ESPN's coverage of the draft was absolutely putrid. It seems to me like they are the ones who got it right, and ESPN right now looks like a complete total joke. The biggest joke, of course, is Mel Kiper, and of course we're going to get to Louis Riddick here in a second because he, Damian Woody, and Stephen A. Smith had an exchange that I'll be reacting to here shortly and kind of contrasting their points. But a lot of people looked at Louis Riddick this draft and said that you should have been a little bit more pro Shedeur Sanders than what you are, especially given the fact that Louis Riddick does actually have connections to the Cleveland Browns organization, or he has for a very long time. I think that what happened in this case with Louis Riddick was that he chose to kind of play both sides on this, and of course he had people, even some people who are not affiliated with the NFL, commentators out there like, say, Roland Martin, for example, retweeting posts that he had said about Shedeur and showing the concerns that he had. The truth be told about Shedeur Sanders is this here. He was already falling in the draft back in March. His stock was already beginning to crater. A lot of it, of course, was because owners, general managers, scouts had concerns with his attitude. They also did not like the fact that they were doing such, such podcasts as going on with Skip Bayless and going on with other NFL-related shows and saying stuff like, we may pull at Eli Manning and we may not play for whoever's that picks us. Stuff like that, and obviously the stuff that I covered in yesterday's video. The point is this right here. People had concerns about Shedeur Sanders, and they did not want to spend a first-round pick on him. And as Boomer Esiason pointed out, Quinn Rivers also fell as well. He's not the only person that fell. Players fall down the draft board all the time, so I highly doubt that it was collusion. I think, if anything, it was exactly what Boomer Esiason said at the very, very beginning. It was NFL owners saying, yeah, I don't want this brand associated with my team. But, of course, I did say that there would be a segment from ESPN that we would be responding to. Now, guys, I did not say this before, but I want to go ahead and just kind of come back to this now. Don't worry, the new content will be much, much more scripted. The biggest reason why I've chosen to make this video is to warn people out there of what is to come. And let me explain what I mean by this. Stephen A. Smith just signed a massive contract with ESPN. All right, Shannon Sharp was supposed to get a massive contract, but of course he's being sued for messing around with a 19-year-old OF girl. He's probably not going to get that bag now. Stephen A. feels like he is, on top of the world. It's possible that Stephen A. Smith could entertain a run for president. Who knows? We've talked about that before as well. However, when you start throwing around words like collusion, when you start throwing around words like that there, people, especially NFL owners, people with money, people who are very, very powerful, begin to raise an eyebrow at that, as you guys will see here soon. And of course, it was Damian Woody would be the one that would actually be the one to say, look, you might want to be careful with this. But let us go ahead and get to that. So it's Stephen A. Smith, it's Damian Woody, and of course it's Louis Riddick. So let's go ahead and get to it.
Draft is spoken. Whether we like it or not, the draft spoke. And somewhere along the line, people were not comfortable with the risk that would be associated with taking him in the first, second, third, or fourth round. That doesn't mean I agree with it. That doesn't mean that anybody agrees with it. That just means that that's what the teams felt. So now for him, he's going to have to go back and look at that process and say, hey, look, what was it during that process that somehow made these people, meaning the 32 teams, feel as though I wasn't worthy of being picked much higher than I was? Pay attention to those things, make the kind of course corrections that he needs to, and now compete his rear end off to win the job, which he is fully capable of doing in Cleveland.
Before Stephen A. responds, or I let Stephen A. respond, what Louis Riddick said right there at the very, very beginning was correct. The draft has spoken. The owners have spoken. The general managers have spoken. You're going to have to deal with that. And as I said before, assuming that Shedeur Sanders gets on the roster, he's got to prove his worth, which I think every single NFL player has to do, including top picks in the draft. But let's go.
I think the NFL sent the message. And the message that was sent was, you are not that guy. Or, as people like to say, you are not him. Because what I've seen, and what many folks have seen year after year after year, if you have that type of talent, regardless of off the field, interviews, guess what? You're going to get picked high, because the NFL teams are in the winning business. They're not in the business of allowing elite talent to just continue to fall. It just doesn't happen that way. Do we see guys slip some? Absolutely. We've seen guys have egregious things in their background where they might slip, but ultimately the NFL is in a talent acquisition business. If they feel like a guy can help us win right now,
they'll take him. Woody is 100% correct right there. They will, in fact, take him. So was Shedeur's talent off? Well, we talked about that in the previous video. We talked about in the video 5 or 6 weeks ago when Ryan Clark was crying about the possibility of Shedeur Sanders getting potentially passed over or not looked at because of the color of his skin. Cam Ward was black, by the way. He was taken number 1 overall. A lot of other black quarterbacks like Milroe were taken before Shedeur. It's just, people wanted to continue with the racist narrative. We talked about how it is that Shedeur didn't want to throw in front of scouts. He didn't want to throw at the combine. We talked about how it is that he acts like he's more into becoming a rapper someday. We talked about that there in previous videos. Also, something else too to consider was what Dan Orlovsky and many others pointed out on ESPN, which is that he finds a way to take too many sacks. Look, you don't want to have your offense be reduced to field goals, but if it's a close game and you need a field goal at the time, then you might want to do that. A lot of times it would be, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6 from the 13-yard line. All of a sudden he would take a sack, and then he would take another sack, and next thing you know, it's 3rd and 24 at the 42-yard line, 43-yard line. Basically took you out of range of scoring a touchdown or even a first down. Clearly, you need to learn to throw the ball away, which is something that Shedeur Sanders did not want to do. And, of course, if you guys remember correctly, in the last video, Mel Kiper was bitching and complaining about the fact that Shedeur did not have an offensive line and that the raw talent was too much. Look, there's another quarterback out there who had extreme levels of raw talent that fell all the way to 25 in the draft. His name was Aaron Rodgers. I've talked about this before. Other quarterbacks had raw talent, and they fell for whatever reason. Given what we know about Tom Brady, you probably think to yourself, maybe he should have been taken in the first round. Well, the biggest knock on Tom when he was at the University of Michigan was that he wasn't that talented with his arm. It was more the leadership. Tom would eventually improve, obviously, if you guys recall, on his arm talent, and of course he would get his position, he would get his time, and eventually he would go on to have an extremely great career, possibly the greatest career of any quarterback that ever lived. There were way too many red flags when it came to Shedeur, and it mostly showed up in his interviews. That right there is the reason why people said, you know what, man, he's just not worth us wasting a first-round selection on. But let us get back to Woody.
They're not going to sit there and pass over a guy time after time after time. And so when you talk about Shedeur Sanders, that's part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, okay, if this guy's coming in and he's not that guy, if he's going to be maybe a backup quarterbacks are obscure. They're not guys that's in the forefront. And so if you're a team, do you want a guy that's going to come in with all the celebrity, everything that comes with Shedeur Sanders? You have to think that's part of a big part of the reason why a guy like Shedeur Sanders can tumble all the way to the 5th round. This is the league speaking. This is not, we can sit here and pontificate about Shedeur Sanders and why we thought that he should have been drafted higher. But ultimately, at the end of the day, 32 teams out there sent a message that said, you know what? You're just not him.
There's something I want to add to what Damian said right there, and it's this right here. This right here is the quarterback position. All right, the quarterback position. I remember when Laramie Tunstall fell in the draft over those photos. Normally, left tackles, left guard, offensive linemen, wide receivers, they normally are not the face of the franchise. Normally, the quarterback is. I think the interviews and, as I said before, everything that Shedeur was doing screamed massive red flag. I don't want this guy to represent my franchise. But now to Stephen A.
But I'm about to say in a roundabout way, Louis Riddick, I'm going to be straight up and down with you because you know how much I revere you. I completely disagree with you with what you're saying, and I'm disappointed in what you didn't say. A lot of this was about primetime Deion Sanders. You can say whatever you want to the audience out there, to these idiotic trolls all over social media talking about wasn't that great or whatever. There is no one, I repeat, no one that looked at Shedeur Sanders and even had him less than the 3rd best quarterback in the draft. This is a quarterback.
Go ahead, Stephen A. Tell us about this, how all of us trolls or whatnot are wrong about Shedeur Sanders not being that good. Look, even if Shedeur Sanders had been drafted by, say, the Giants, he would have sat behind Russell Wilson the first year. Even if he had been drafted by Tennessee, and clearly he was not, it's possible that he would have been forced to sit behind Will Levis or whoever the quarterback is there for another year. You guys can beat me up in the comment section, go right ahead. But I want to say something right now. One of Shedeur Sanders' main mentors is actually Tom Brady. I mentioned Tom Brady earlier. The Raiders needed a backup quarterback, and they're probably not going to have Geno Smith there for more than, say, 2 or 3 years. You mean to tell me that Tom Brady, who mentors Shedeur Sanders, who, by the way, is involved in the Raiders' drafting of a quarterback, you mean to tell me that Tom Brady said, no, we're not going to draft him? They had opportunities to get him. Now, guys, let that part sink in. Even his own mentor did not want him. But let's continue.
Picks came and went before you heard his name. Don't talk to me about football. I don't want to hear a damn thing about football. This ain't about football. This is about something else. And I said that even though it's different, I brought up.
It's about football, Stephen A. Plain and simple. Football. Football as in the sport. The play on the field, the players, the business, the organization. It's about football. But continue.
It's an accident that no owner in the National Football League wanted to touch him. We can use the word collusion. It ain't necessary. They think alike in a lot of different situations. They don't have to collude with one another. There's a universal understanding that this is our league. And we want to do what we want to do the way that we want to do it. And we'll be damned if anybody's going to tell us what to do, because guess what? We running the show. And people going to come. They're going to flock to the stadium. They're going to have their tailgate parties. We going to win in the ratings. We going to make damn near $250 million a piece as an owner. Ain't a damn thing anybody's going to do about it. We understood that years ago. But suddenly we're going to engage in collective amnesia here. Hold on, Molly, because this is very important. Along with the specter of people potentially calling for him to be the next coach, you can understand the reticence. But for 143 picks.
Stephen A, hold that thought, because you brought up 3 points, and I want Louis to respond. The first point is the football aspect of him being the 3rd quarterback on everyone. Then there's the Deion aspect.
I don't think I need to discuss this daddy and this daddy possibly usurping a coach, the coach of the team that Shedeur plays for. But then again, there's a reason why it is that I'm rolling this clip right here for you guys and the B-roll footage one more time. Because that's actually Dion right there who's talking. There's a lot there that I skipped out of because Stephen A, was trying to get animated. And of course, there's also the very, very beginning bit that I played for you guys at the very beginning, which of course was the fact that Damian Woody would tell Stephen A, you might want to be careful when it comes to the topic of collusion. Here's the reason why it is you want to be careful when it comes to the topic of collusion. And oh, by the way, when you heard Molly Karam right there at the very end, Molly Karam, by the way, does not seem to understand why it is that so many people are irritated with her. Well, that right there is the reason why, because she went ahead and answered all the points that Louis Riddick would eventually come back and answer to, because she's got to, get her bid in. You're not in, look. The people on the panel are supposed to talk. You're simply supposed to moderate. There's a reason why it is that people don't like Molly Karam, and they find her to be absolutely 100% attractive, annoying. Yes, but extremely annoying. Trust me, you being annoying can invalidate your physical attractiveness very, very quick. Just say. But here's the problem with the whole collusion thing. If you automatically assume that the NFL or NFL owners are colluding, it is very possible that these big, very, very powerful men could come back with a lawsuit against you, Stephen A., or possibly against ESPN. There are times where I think to myself that ESPN, Stephen A. Smith being there, is absolutely 100% a liability. And by the way, if a lawsuit was to in fact come, especially this year here, it probably wouldn't get settled until a couple of years from now. So maybe that right there is what Stephen A. is doing. Maybe he's just, this was my final contract before I decide to run for the office of the presidency. Of course, if he was to do that, the owners would just simply put more money behind whoever the hell he goes up against, and Stephen A. would lose, get crushed, absolutely destroyed. But still, though, the point is this right here. You need to be careful when you throw around collusion, because you actually have no proof, and it seems to me like the team's case against Shedeur Sanders and not taking him in the first round, it seems to me, given everything that we know, everything that we have seen, it seems to me like it's a pretty daggone strong case, so you might want to cool it with that. But you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say about this. Make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, and share the video. Also, something else too. There's probably going to be 2 videos coming out tomorrow. It's probably the last time that I do 2 videos for a while, because like I said before, at the end of this week here, the new content will be coming in. The first video, of course, is going to be about the movie Full Metal Jacket and what the hell it was really and truly about. That video will probably come out right around Mother's Day, maybe right before. Still, though, if you guys can, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys later.